I still want that gas, yes.
She can quit her job as if she works for Goldman Sachs.
This man is a boss. You know him, you love him. It's Kingpin, everybody. Wilson Fisk, the crime syndicate overlord himself. He is one of Spider-Man's biggest villains of all time. And I mean big quite literally. Look how big this man is. He could eat like 3 Spider-Mans and still be hungry. God, this guy's huge. No, but seriously, this character is huge. Like, so big he couldn't possibly stay just a Spider-Man villain. He becomes a Daredevil villain, a Punisher villain, and in general, just a street-level villain. He's like the final boss for all street-level superheroes. And even though he's big, doesn't mean he can't throw his hands either or throw his weight around. Apparently, he's like 100% muscle under all the fat. What? I'm not buying it, but how else would a man like this be able to move with this much speed, this size of caliber? How does he do it? Doesn't make any sense. Kingpin is freaking godlike. I don't think he gets nearly enough love. He just like gets relegated as like the street-level super boss, super crime lord, and people don't really break down his character. They don't really look at his character through many adaptations, and I think that's a crime, man. I think it's very criminal, and I don't do that pun on purpose. Seriously, though, this character freaking rocks. He's awesome, and he's done very well in many different adaptations. This video has one goal and one goal only. It's to show you no matter the universe Kingpin is in, he is the biggest boss and most badass Spider-Man villain there is in that universe. Let's do this, people. In the comics, Kingpin in the 616 universe is an absolute menace. He first appears in Amazing Spider-Man 50, which is like one of the greatest Spider-Man stories ever written. The story itself is Spider-Man No More. You know it, you've heard of it for sure. But we also get Kingpin's first appearance. The way he's drawn in the OG days, it's just so peak. I love this look. I genuinely just love how comics looked at this time. Like, they looked so great. The colors popped so much. In his first appearance, Kingpin is shown off like the boss of all bosses right away. When 2 other mob bosses challenge Kingpin, he throttles these fools. And that's when Spider-Man swings in. Kingpin in his first battle with Spider-Man is just something to behold. Like I said earlier, the colors are just so vibrant and they pop so well. But the fight itself is also pretty long and it's drawn very, very well. It looks gorgeous. Kingpin and Spider-Man are going toe-to-toe, and you get great banter from both parties throughout this bout. The two feel very evenly matched throughout this battle, but can you believe Kingpin is the one who uses his head to get the advantage over Spider-Man? He uses like knockout gas from like a pin in his shirt that Spider-Man would have never seen coming. He then throws Spider-Man and J. Jonah Jameson in a container and fills it up with water to drown both of them. Spider-Man uses his genius and his quick wits to escape the chamber, and he meets up again with the Kingpin for another battle. This time, Spider-Man is just too fast for Kingpin, though, and he kinda mollywops the Kingpin. It's bad. Kingpin would escape through a secret exit, but this would not even be close to the last time we'd see this big man. Kingpin goes on to be Daredevil's villain as well, like Daredevil's nemesis, and honestly, I think that's pretty cool. Spider-Man has a very, very large cast of villains to choose from, right? Daredevil commandeering the Kingpin, and the two like sharing them from time to time, that's okay. It still doesn't stop the fact that Kingpin ordered a hit on Peter Parker and coincidentally killed Aunt May. Yeah, even though he's a Daredevil nemesis, he still killed Aunt May. He's responsible for it. This happened when Spider-Man's identity went public during Civil War. Kingpin ordered a hit on Spider-Man, but, well, Spider-Man's Spider-Sense gets him out of the way, and Aunt May is actually killed in the collateral. Her death would spark one of the greatest Spider-Man comics post-2000s, Spider-Man Back in Black. Literally one of the greatest Spider-Man comics ever, honestly. Peter Parker dons the black suit again, in cloth, and he visits Kingpin in jail. He strips down to pretty much butt-ass naked and beats the brakes off of this fatso. It is straight up raw. I love this comic. Everything that follows One More Day is garbo, including One More Day. It's actually the worst Spider-Man comic stuff you'll ever read. The worst. But Back in Black? Nah, that was amazing, y'all. Another Kingpin story I really want to talk about in the comics is Spider-Man's Tangled Web #4. This is kind of an unknown story, but it's really freaking good. This book follows the life of a hitman who believed he had successfully completed his task, given to him by Kingpin. But instead, Spider-Man thwarted his plans after he left the scene. This comic follows the man as he gets a phone call letting him know that he failed the Kingpin, and Kingpin is aware of this. The man knows he's going to die tonight. He's instructed to leave the house at a certain time, and he gets picked up in a car by one of Kingpin's henchmen. This henchman was a bit of a loudmouth, talking all this rah-rah about this and that, so the man who's being delivered to the Kingpin murders the henchman. He goes inside Kingpin's building, and you're thinking like, okay, this man, he just murdered the henchman for delivering him to the Kingpin. He's got a wife and a kid. He's probably going to fight the Kingpin for his survival, That's not what happened. He goes up to the Kingpin, he goes into his office, and he's like, yeah, that henchman that you had, he wasn't really good, so I killed him for you. All I ask in return for that favor I did for you, Mr. Kingpin, is spare my wife and child. Kingpin then hands the man a gun, tells him he's going to attempt to kill the Kingpin, and it will be futile, and Kingpin will react in self-defense in order to kill the man. The man understands, and the roles play out as stated, and Kingpin kills the man. We flash to the man's house, in which another Kingpin henchman is about to go inside, in which he receives a phone call from the Kingpin ordering him not to kill the wife and child, and it's okay. They can live. This story literally embodies how cold, calculated, and controlling the Kingpin truly is. Every step of the situation, everyone did their duties to the very end. The henchman knew he would be murdered by Kingpin, but he still acted on his behalf, killing another worker who was bad at his job. It's such a mob-style story, I was shocked to see it was in a Spider-Man comic. I think Spider-Man is in like one panel of this entire book. A Spider-Man comic with no Spider-Man, and it was still great. How does that happen? Definitely worth the read, y'all. Y'all gotta check this one out. Kingpin in the comics, as you can clearly see, is a ruthless, brutal, cold boss. But how about in the 90s adaptation? Let's talk about that.
After all this, you still...
I still want that gas, yes. And you had better deliver.
This, in my opinion, is the adaptation for the Kingpin. He's imposing, he's big, the crime lord syndicate, a gangster, and again, he's big. He is the person responsible for a very large majority of Spider-Man's issues. He's running a crime syndicate, and he's constantly being thwarted by Spider-Man, so he begins to hire more goons and more superpowered criminals to help with his endeavors of being a crime lord. Whether they directly participate in his schemes of thievery or they're just sent out to hunt down Spider-Man and kill Spider-Man, the 90s Spider-Man show really just does a phenomenal job at showing Wilson Fisk as a boss. But on top of that, they also show him as like an actual character with an arc. He himself is a man living a double life much like Peter Parker, and they directly parallel each other. In the show, we see Kingpin's origins. We see his upbringing with his father, how his father left him for dead and he got his revenge after he rose to power. We also then see he did the very same thing to his son. He deeply regrets doing this to his son, and he just waits for his son to reenact his revenge against him. When Kingpin was a child, he was just a boy who wanted his father's love and attention. Instead, he ended up in prison for his father's heinous antics, and he would go on to do the very same thing to his own son. It's a truly tragic, depressing tale. It's crazy. It's good, though. We also see Kingpin as like a physical match for Spider-Man, which we don't see in comics anymore. Back in the day, like we talked about, Kingpin and Spider-Man were often shown on equal footing. It's awesome to see like a smooth, sly, agile Spider duke it out with this big, brutish Kingpin. A real David versus Goliath type beat, you know? This Kingpin really is everything. He put the impression in so many fans' minds at such a pivotal point in their life that he was Spider-Man's big bad. Like he was Spider-Man's nemesis. Green Goblin and Dr. Octopus are Spider-Man's two most prominent villains. But in the 90s show, neither of them appear nearly as much as the Kingpin does. No matter what happens, every which way Spider-Man looks and turns, Kingpin is there to terrorize Spider-Man. Always. Something I really like about Kingpin in this show is like, whenever anything happens, Kingpin is always getting in on the action. Promethium from space? Kingpin's gotta have it. A tablet that reverses your age? Kingpin's gotta have it. I think what makes it all the more better is both of these are like incredibly powerful. Promethium was theorized to be able to blow up the planet. And a tablet that reverses age means a literal immortality tablet. You want to know what Kingpin's goals for both of these were? To sell them. Yep, he wants to sell them for money. I get it and flip it. Kingpin is Mr. Get It and Flip It. It's awesome. Lastly, the show even shows Kingpin as like a Spider-Man and Daredevil villain at the same time. I love this. Daredevil's even the one who informs Spider-Man of who the Kingpin really is, who his secret identity really is. Like, it's awesome. It's a great way to show this character interacts with both Spider-Man and Daredevil. Phenomenal. God, the 90s show is so peak. This is peak Kingpin. The Daredevil movie in the 2000s. In the Daredevil movie from the 2000s, Kingpin is played by Michael Clark Duncan. Right off rip, I just want to say rest in peace to a legend. I know what you're all thinking. A black Kingpin. Wow, so woke. But yeah, this movie, again, came out like 20 years ago. Well before that whole woke term was totally misappropriated by a bunch of idiots. This is phenomenal casting. If you see this shot, who else would you guess this man would be? Michael Clark Duncan was an impeccable Kingpin. He is, in my opinion, by far the most physically imposing out of all the Kingpins. Like, look at this man, dude. He would beat the brakes off of me. The movie itself does a lot of random stuff with Kingpin that I feel like should have been more just associated with Daredevil, and they should have had more of like a story like, with just the two of them and not over expanding more. But Michael Clark Duncan was amazing as Kingpin. He is by far the best part of this movie, like not even close. And I love Ben Affleck, but Michael Clark Duncan, are you serious?
Nobody's innocent. Nobody.
The Netflix Kingpin. Vincent D'Onofrio is just so godlike as Kingpin. Another live-action Kingpin who is phenomenal. He has the most screen time probably out of any adaptation. I can only imagine the 90s one is close, but I feel like this one's more. He's a Daredevil villain as well, and he's not necessarily a Spider-Man villain in this universe yet. But man, his portrayal is so accurate and godlike. The way he's characterized, accurate. He is the Kingpin. The verbiage he uses when he talks is so great. The way he moves, the way he even dresses, it's also Kingpin. Now, he's even in the MCU, and he already appeared in Hawkeye. I actually thought he was great in that show. Many people, much like myself, were afraid they would tone it down or make him like goofier for the MCU. But he felt just every bit as imposing as he was in the Netflix show, people. In the Hawkeye show, he's just an absolute menace. I love the respect they gave to him. And I cannot wait for this new Daredevil show to come out. I need more Vincent D'Onofrio as Kingpin. I just love when an actor or actress is excited about the role they're playing. This man loves that he's playing the Kingpin, and I love that he loves it, you know? It feels so cool to watch something somebody's super proud of and happy to be in. I love this man as Kingpin. Spider-Verse Kingpin is massive. Seriously, big. Way big. He's a supreme evil man who truly only cares about his selfish desires, which are to get his wife and child back. That's it. He's so selfish, he's willing to destroy the entire world in order to bring them back. I personally really like this portrayal of Kingpin. You're going to tell me comics Kingpin wouldn't be this selfish? He totally is. He's a total boss in this movie as well. He gets his hands dirty, you know, he fights. He's the leader of a massive crime syndicate as well. He has his own superpowered mercenaries as well. Like, this is the Kingpin, and this Kingpin freaking rocks. He's like the 90s Kingpin, but bigger. Not as gangster, but he still killed Spider-Man, though. This Kingpin killed Spider-Man. Yeah, this Kingpin was really well done. I really enjoyed this portrayal of him. I'm sure the Kingpin shows up in other works, but these are the main ones, and honestly, they are all spectacular. They all nail the beats of Kingpin to a T. It's rare you see a character this prominent done with such love and care across so many different mediums. He's great in animated TV shows. He's great in animated movies. He's great in live action movies. He's great in live action TV shows. If you said any of these Kingpins was your favorite Kingpin, no one would bat an eye either. There's something to love about each and every single one of these guys. A character that could have been Spider-Man's nemesis deserves nothing less. You've seen him in the comics. The man is ruthless. He deserves portrayals just like that. The Kingpin is a boss, y'all. Boss, I say! Dunk out. Peace!